Good morning, Galaxians, and welcome to another live edition of the Galaxy CDs, Rocks, and Flips Reseller Talk podcast, and to a very, very frigid bat cave. It was a balmy 5 degrees this morning when I trekked over to the warehouse to pick up this morning's shipments, and it is quite chilly down here in the basement today. Hope everybody's doing well. Nothing specific to go over today. I thought we would just have a little coffee. Mostly as a hand warmer, if I'm being honest, and a little chat. I do have pulled up here some of the recent comments on some of the YouTube videos that I thought we would go over and maybe prompt some discussion amongst everyone. So that's kind of the plan for today. Nothing super specific. A couple of quick good mornings. Big Dre, thank you for coming out. Media Picker, good morning. 4 degrees there as well. You're in the kind of Chicago area. Am I remembering that correctly? Cat Minion, good morning. Thank you for coming by. So yeah, let me know how everybody is doing this morning. Lord Jake Ryan, good morning. Media Picker and I also at 4 degrees. There you go. So yeah, heat wave. Another, what is it? Polar vortex, Siberian blast of air. It is ridiculously cold. Hour south of Chicago. Okay. Yeah, I kind of thought that was in the area. 18 in Michigan. What is up with that? How is it warmer in Michigan? Although, to be fair, I think it is a little warmer now. I went to the warehouse at like 6:45 this morning, so there wasn't even any light. Upper 40s in Tallahassee. That's pretty cold for down there, to be fair. Operating on eBay, good morning from Central Kentucky. Sunny, should be up to 40 tomorrow. I saw they were talking about potentially maybe as high as 50 for my area on Friday. They've since backed that down into the 40s. So we'll see how that goes. Good morning, 27 in Southeast Oregon, says Mel Flips It. So yeah, let me know if you have anything specific besides the weather that you would like to chat about this morning. Otherwise, like I said, we're going to go through a handful of comments that I've received on some of the videos over the last couple of weeks to just kind of spark some discussion and conversation. Fern Flips, 39 in northwestern Arkansas. That's quite chilly as well. Big Dre, I'm curious to know what kind of issues you've been having with FedEx. I use them about half the time and only had a few delayed packages. So I've not used them as a shipper, but I've had a lot of stuff delivered by them to me from other places that I've purchased from. And almost every time there's been a delay. Some of it now, this time of year, obviously there are weather delays and there are other issues. The packages end up, I think there's probably a comment here that we'll get to. I've had packages dropped off in front of my garage, in front of my neighbor's garage, in front of my other neighbor's front door. You get a notification that the package has arrived, and it's always a bit of a Russian roulette as to where the package actually has been dropped off. I've really struggled at times to find, had to walk essentially half a block in each direction to find my packages because they've been left at the wrong house. I live on a corner. They've been left at a house that's not even on the street that matches my address. So just a lot of, and maybe it's a local issue. Maybe it's not FedEx at large. But my personal experience has just been terrible with FedEx. Let's see what else we got here. Recommerce Dave, good morning. I won't mention the temperature down here. Yes, please don't. For those that don't know, Recommerce Dave comes to us from the land down under. All my ground advantage shipping is delayed this week, says operating on eBay. I got a notification on a package that had made it as far as Kansas that it is now under a regional weather delay. I'm still dealing with about a dozen packages that I dropped off on December 31st that are all missing, have not gotten their secondary scan. The package acceptance scan was done, but no scan since then. A couple of packages from that shipment have made it to their destination, so I'm not quite sure what's going on with that. But yeah, the Postal Service continues to also have some issues. Cameron D, hello. I learned what all my neighbors' front doors look like. Yeah, absolutely. That is no doubt. Yeah, messy to say the least. So let's jump down here into some of these comments that I've gotten. This one was on the fee-free selling on eBay UK. There's been a lot of follow-on discussion because they now have announced what we talked about in that show a couple of months ago, the buyer's fees. And this is a fairly common comment that I've gotten from sellers in the UK. Holding sellers' fees was bad enough. By that, I believe he means holding their funds because they've changed how they do payouts over there. But having just learned about buyer fees, it gets even worse. I'll be looking at a different platform from the 4th of February. And that is a really common sentiment from private sellers on eBay in the UK, and additionally from buyers, much like when Mercari implemented buyer fees. A lot of buyers saying they just won't shop over there. So that's going to be a really interesting one to watch over the coming weeks and months to see how that shakes out for eBay in the UK. Are they able to make those buyers' fees work? What happens to their seller base? Do they get what they were hoping for, which was a transition of a lot of quote unquote private sellers who are actually business sellers to move into the correct category, which will eliminate buyer fees for their buyers, will also allow them to do automatic fund withdrawals, get their money right away. There are a ton of advantages to being a registered business seller on eBay in the UK, with the exception of being that it's not fee free. So it's a bit of a trade-off. A comment on the video we did, the live we did a couple of weeks ago on Whatnot. TJ, the VJ, says, as a full-time bookseller, I feel Whatnot is not a valuable use of my time. I could be listing higher priced, slightly longer tail books on eBay and make more money than trying to spend the time to sell them for less on Whatnot. And that is a concern that I brought up in that video and that I continue to have. Whatnot is higher velocity, lower dollar volume. Even the sellers that are doing really, really well on Whatnot, at least in the book category, what I see by and large is that they are selling things at faster velocity for slightly lower prices than they would if they were selling those as potentially long tail items on other platforms. Now, as Max, Common Ground Find, said when he was here on the show, whatever that was, a couple of months ago, he doesn't look at any individual book in terms of its individual profit and loss. He looks at things in aggregate. I spent whatever, $300, $500, $1,000 on this buy. How quickly can I recoup that investment and get into the profit? And Whatnot, because of its higher velocity, allows him to do that. And in aggregate, it's profitable for him. If you look at any individual transaction, he's probably selling some of those books for 50, 60, 70% of what he could have gotten had he waited on eBay, but he's doing that with a quickness rather than over potentially weeks or months. So it's a business decision in how you want to do it. Again, my use of Whatnot currently is, as was my response to this comment, I'm currently using it to sort of clear out extra low value books from bulk buys. So for me, I'm, again, as I talked about on that show, I'm taking books that ordinarily in the past I probably would have just discarded or donated and attempting to flip them for $1 or $2 or more. And I'm probably averaging $3 to $4 a pop over there, depending on the show and the sale. And that for me is a successful use of my time. I'm recouping my initial investment in that book, making a couple of bucks, generating a little bit of activity. I know that there are people who have found me on Whatnot that have since come across and made purchases on my eBay store that have now started to follow me on YouTube. So there's some kind of unintended benefits from that. Yes, it's low value, but it's money I would not have been making otherwise. So for me, it still represents probably a good opportunity. Let's hop back into the chat here real quick. Mel flips it. What is your take on the Dr. Seuss banned books? I have one, but it's selling and listed. I've heard different points of view. I don't know that that's as big a controversy now as it was whenever that blew up a couple of years ago. I don't have any Dr. Seuss books. I generally am not looking for kids' books. If I had one, I would probably go ahead and list it and just see what happens. But I think a lot of that has died down. I don't know really that the value of those has remained high now that all the brouhaha has died down. So let me know, what is it listed for? What's your expectations on what you might be able to get out of it? Haven't listed yours. Others I see are selling. Yeah, I would not hesitate probably at this point to list it. The worst that's going to happen probably is eBay is going to delist the item and give you a smack on the wrist. I would probably go ahead and list them at this point. Den Decor Depot, good morning. Good to see you. JRKR 1964. Hello. It has been a little bit since I've seen you here. Recommerce Dave, I saw that eBay Live has started in the US. Will you be registering and trying it? I don't know. I don't think I will. At least not initially. We'll see what kind of traction it gets. I talked about it. I feel like it was a few weeks ago. I really feel like Whatnot and Poshmark, probably to a lesser extent, have kind of captured that live piece. And I'm not sure, as late as eBay is to the game, whether people will jump on board. I think they're already conditioned to go into Whatnot or go into Poshmark for lives. And it'll be interesting to watch. I definitely will keep an eye on it. And if it looks like it's going to take off, I might consider it. But for my initial plans, I will not be jumping on that. Additionally, I just don't have any more time between doing 2 YouTube shows a week and 2 Whatnot shows a week and listing. As I said here this morning, I've already done 98 listings this week, plus shipping 100 plus items. I'm pretty well tapped out on the schedule, so I don't know that adding one more live is probably in my future. Fern Flips, I sold the band Dr. Seuss book on Mercari. They didn't flag it there. Yeah, I don't know that they did that. That was kind of an eBay thing, if I recall correctly. Mel Flips it. Thank you. Also, I can get more today. More Dr. Seuss books, I assume. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that they're all valuable because there are so many of them out there. But certain ones certainly might be, and especially early printings, of course, as is the case kind of with any book. Den Decor Depot says, got another negative feedback from someone who hasn't picked their order up from customs going back to November 11th. I'm just waiting for the eBay rejection on that one too. And that has been, I've had a couple of, I had one the other day. I had somebody, they left neutral feedback, which is, I mean, it's whatever. It doesn't count against you. It's annoying, but it was particularly annoying because the customer made the purchase on January 1st, which was of course a postal holiday and you couldn't ship. I shipped it on the 2nd. Then we had the big winter storm, which delayed shipping. Then the government declared Thursday the 9th as a postal holiday. So there was no movement of items on the 9th. The customer left neutral feedback, still haven't received the item. The morning of the 10th, when I went in and looked at the order, the tracking said out for delivery. And sure enough, it was delivered later that afternoon. I messaged the buyer and said, hey, I say, this just kind of got crossed in the wires. Would you consider revising your feedback? Because I see that you received the item today on the same day that you received the left feedback saying that you did not receive the item. And it was, do I have it? Yes. Never heard from him. So I left a pretty terse response to that feedback. Again, neutral feedback, it's whatever. You try not to get too pressed about it, but it is annoying when it is the fault of the buyer that has caused the problem, not picking an item up at customs, not taking the time to check tracking or to reach out to the seller first and say, hey, I haven't received my item yet. Like I said, on the dozen packages that I've got that I know that are delayed, I've been proactive. I reached out to all 12 of those buyers and said, hey, something's going on at the Cincinnati hub with your shipment. It's been delayed. We'll continue to watch it. And if for some reason it's lost, I will absolutely refund your money. And I've only had one customer that's really been kind of bent out of shape, is literally messaging me every day. Where's my package? Where's my package? And I'm like, I already told you where it's at and what's going on. And I'm going to let the missing package request run its course before I do anything crazy. But yes, it can be annoying when people leave feedback that is not relevant to anything that you did. This is one really that you would expect eBay should, based on what they said back at the summer seller check-in, that they were going to protect sellers from incorrect feedback. This is one that you would think they would review because it's sitting in customs. It's the customer's responsibility to go pick it up, and they haven't. So let us know how that goes. Operating on eBay says, I just sold some partially working singing fish within 24 hours. I think it's because I upload a video. Do you ever upload a video for a higher priced book? I don't. I don't know that a video of a static item like a book really would be helpful. Um, Items that have motion, that there's movement, or you could do something with, maybe would make more sense to me. But for books, and again, at the volume I'm trying to list them, to shoot a video, I guess if you did it only on the really high end books. But I don't know that there's anything I couldn't show in a photo that a video would capture. You can let me know in the chat if you think I'm crazy with that. But on a book, I just don't know that it would be beneficial. Den Decor Depot says the order shipped 11/1 to Bulgaria and hit their customs in 2 weeks. Yeah, in my experience, again, I assume you did that through, was that through the eBay International Shipping Program? And if so, they should absolutely remove that feedback, because once you got it to them, that should be it. So, yeah, interesting. If you shipped it on your own, might be a different scenario, but that should definitely be removed. Big Dre says, woke up this morning to an offer of $70 on a pair of slippers that I was selling for $120. Accepted the offer and hope to get a few more sales today. Awesome. That's awesome. $120 pair of slippers. Man, what were those? Fill us in on that deal. That's a good deal. I did mute the mic there, so you didn't hear me swallowing hot chocolate, which is what I'm working this morning. Mel Flips It says, I had a neutral feedback because of a shipping delay. He did change it when asked. I now have a shipping delay disclaimer in my auto feedback for buyers. There you go. Paid $3 for the slippers, says Big Dre. That is a fantastic flip. I see why you took the $70. Good deal. That was via pirate ship simple export. I've done a video for electronics to prove they work. Yeah. Now see, that's a case where that would make sense. You can show, whatever, a video playing on the screen of a portable DVD player, or, a CD player playing audio, those sorts of things, where there's something that would physically be moving or making a sound or whatever, where a video would make a lot of sense. Just on a static book, I'm not sure it would be worth, for me, my business decision would be that it's not worth that investment in time. Operating says, I just thought that the video would be thumbing through the book, but that the advantage might be that the algorithm might boost listings with videos. I guess my thing would be, on a higher value book, you're probably not up against that many competitive pieces. So again, a boost might not really even be necessary. And I don't know that they actually are doing that. Etsy claims on their platform that listings with videos do, I don't know what it is, like 18% more sales than listings without videos. So maybe there's something to it. Again, the physical setup to do a video, you would need, something like what I've got here in the YouTube studio. So I'd have to come from the back cave to get a camera with like a top-down shot, which I don't have, which I get comments on. If you've watched my Whatnot shows, I'm holding books up like to the camera like this all the time. So you would need some kind of setup to really make that work well, because I can't hold my phone and flip through the book at the same time. So there's so many logistical things on my end that, as the person said on the Whatnot thing, it just probably wouldn't be worth it necessarily for me. Chuck Witt says, good morning. Ray, Ryan, Brian, I've answered to anything over the years, so no worries. A video also adds a fair amount of time to list the item also. Yep. Yeah. That would be, again, my concern at the volume I'm trying to list. It would have to be something pretty special. And again, in the case of like a piece of electronics or whatever, absolutely would make good sense. And again, if you think that would benefit your listings and you've got, some kind of setup where you can do that fairly efficiently, by all means, you should add video to as many listings as possible. It is another tool that they give you that if you feel would be beneficial for any or all of your listings, I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm just explaining why I would probably not in most cases. Let's get back down here into some of the comments that we have gotten. There's one about the whatnot cash influx from Brian Henry. Hope the infusion results in a better appearance and smoother operation for buyers. We often criticize eBay for making so many unneeded page layout changes that our heads spin, but I think whatnot could use a visual overhaul so it looks like a modern platform. Parts of it currently look like it's still in an early beta phase. And they've been around 5 years, I think, if I remember correctly. But they just sent out a survey actually yesterday to sellers asking for feedback on things they could do better. And some of the things that I mentioned in my feedback was that the software is still a little glitchy. I've had shows that have shut down completely, that have just frozen. I've had listings in shows that I was not able to start the auctions. There are constant dropouts in the chat. They're set up for shipping and for kind of seeing where your funds are and what your fees are is kind of clunky. So there is some kind of back end stuff that they could do. Aesthetically, from a visual standpoint, with it being primarily a mobile app based thing, there's a lot of stuff that you look at. Like if you're looking at it on a PC screen, it just looks goofy because that's not really the market they've aimed for. It's designed to be a mobile first app. And that does cause there to be some kind of weird looks when you look at it on something else. Not to mention the fact that every phone is a slightly different width. So you really got to be careful if you're doing like extra graphics and whatnot, that they fit into all of those different sizes of phones. Mel Flips, it says, yes, time. I would only do a video for books if I also use YouTube Short or social media. Yeah, now that would make sense as well. You could do, if you had something like really, really special, whatever, $500,000 book that you wanted to hype, you could do maybe, I don't know what the length is for eBay videos, but you could do a 20, 30, 40-second short that you could then put on TikTok, at least until it gets banned in a few days, YouTube, Instagram, whatever, to try to market that item as well. That would make sense and would be then a way to maybe get a little more value for your time. Cameron D, I've had several returns for size from around Christmas, way more than usual since I always add measurements. I'm thinking lots of impulse buying. And to be fair, I've talked about it a lot. People don't pay attention. They don't read the descriptions. They don't look at the photos. I see all the time in like Poshmark groups that I'm in, even though I don't sell on Poshmark, I follow those groups so I can bring you news. Where people have said, I when I take pictures of my item, I've got a tape measure right there that shows all of the measurements and the dimensions, and people still say it doesn't fit, it's the wrong size, it's whatever. So my personal feeling is, like you, most of those are remorse returns, not actually anything wrong with the item, but you're kind of stuck. Operating on eBay says, thanks for the feedback. My only time suck with using video is that it's sometimes problematic when trying to upload when using my hotspot internet. And that can be another thing. Video is obviously a much bigger format. It's going to take longer to load, which will make it take longer to get your listing completed. Recommerce Dave, have you found specialty plant books command high values? Found a book covering orchids and was surprised at the sold prices, $100+. I have sold maybe not $100+, but a lot of old horticulture, agriculture books, textbooks of that. I talk about old textbooks all the time in my What Sold recaps. Some of those have commanded pretty good money, $40, $50, $60, especially the ones with a lot of really cool illustrations or paintings of the various flora. So yeah, some of those can be really, really good. And again, the more unusual, the better. If it is about a particularly unusual plant or animal, or it's a very different take on those things, yeah, those can really be extra valuable. Cameron D says, yep. Miss Lachey, welcome. Watching at work, so I have to be really quiet. I'm not being too loud, am I? With my often loud laughter. Let's get back down here into these comments. Brian Henry said the Posh Loop Return Program, which we talked about last week. Any return program that doesn't return the full amount spent to buyers will struggle, in his opinion, because Loop will need to be paid something for the service provided, and those fees will likely come out of the amount totals. Of course, with enough PR push, they may be able to convince many buyers that getting something is better than nothing, and if they can make accurate listings at the push of one button, then, speaking of time sucks, it is not a big time suck. That program, like I said, is going to be really interesting to watch. And again, it's aimed more at brands and big companies than individual sellers. But I agree. If you're beyond the return policy opportunity and you can't return the thing at all, would I be willing to take whatever 75, 80 cents on the dollar to get out of the thing and move on from it and get a little money? Or would I just keep it and then sell it at a garage sale for $1? I mean, I think there's an opportunity there. It'll be really interesting to see if that is successful for both Poshmark and for Loop. And of course, for buyers who have things they want to get rid of. Brian Henry also commented on the FedEx thing. Don't think they're any worse than UPS, but when I get a notice that they've affected a delivery, it's like an Easter egg hunt to find where on the property they left the package, which is what I was just talking about. So yeah, they kind of leave stuff everywhere. Let's see. Partnerships. I talked about the Facebook Marketplace eBay partnership. And I have seen this same thing. Brian Henry also commented seeing other content creators who like dramatic titles shouting merger this week. But from what I've seen, partnership seems more appropriate. As I said in that response, I try real hard to be as accurate as possible and avoid clickbait titles. That's not what I'm all about on this channel. I want to bring you like good, accurate information that's useful and relevant and important, but not to make a mountain out of a molehill, as it were, with some of this stuff. Have you thought about adding higher price book to your whatnot as buy it nows for your whatnot shows that could be the same genre but fixed happy to you price that you would get on other platforms? You have the buyers on the other side of the screen already. If you put more items directly in front of them, they might buy. And then I lost it. And that is true. I don't know. Again, I guess as a buy it now, it might be a worthwhile experiment to put a couple, like if I'm doing a science fiction show, to take a unusual, $20 or $30 item to the show and say, hey, I'm not going to do an auction on this one, but this is market value on this book. I see some sellers that's essentially what they're doing. They're starting some of their auctions at market value and seeing what happens. So that might be a worthwhile effort to just see. Again, you've got a somewhat captive audience already there, so might be worth trying. Let's see. What else have we got down here? Something Poshmark needs to realize is once a buyer becomes a seller for their favorite online platform, they stop buying so much and start focusing on selling because they get excited about making money. This is from Making Ends Meet, Judy's Stop and Shop. There will be thousands of buyers converted into sellers when they see that it's fairly easy to do. I literally became a seller on eBay 13 years ago because I had items that I had bought that I did not want to keep. So I decided to sell them, and I've been selling ever since. And I know for certain I do not buy as much as I did back then, not nearly. So there you go. That's another take on that. When you take someone who has made a purchase, and all these sites are trying to do both of these things. They're trying to convert sellers into buyers and buyers into sellers, because the logic is that you open up more opportunities for both of those people to do those things. But as Judy's Stop and Shop says, when she became a seller, she stopped buying nearly as much stuff. So really interesting take on that. Dash Rabbit said, I don't see the Facebook Marketplace partnership as a negative for sellers, even though there's a promotions gotcha down the road. I agree. It will at least drive potential buyers to eBay and place the platform in their minds for other purchases. Absolutely true, because right now they've not been seen. It's been Amazon primarily that you see pop up in those ads. So this is a win, in my opinion, for eBay. My only concern would be the type of buyers coming over. Facebook Marketplace is full of flakes and scammers. Because of that, I'd like to see sellers given the option to opt out of the program on an item level. Thanks for the updates. I tend to miss the official ones. That's why I do this show. Thank you. Yeah, I think that program is a win-win. I obviously, like I talked about, I think it is absolutely an opportunity for eBay to push and promote their offsite ad program, which is it's fine. That's fair. They've got that. They want to make money off of it. I don't object to them trying to promote it at all. I do wish sellers, again, I'm always on all of these things. I like when sellers have the opportunity to choose whether or not they participate in something like this. And in so many of these cases, you really can't. It's like in this one, if your listing qualifies, they're going to put it over on Facebook Marketplace. Now, will the scammers and that from Facebook come to eBay and try to pull that same thing? I don't know that they will. Um, Kind of for the same reason that really the only people that try to get scammed on the platforms are the brand new sellers. If I find something on Facebook Marketplace that takes me to eBay and I see that seller has done 20,000 transactions, I'm probably not going to try to pull a fast one over there. You can let me know what you think in the chat about that. But I think that program is a win for probably for both Facebook and for eBay. Let's get back here into the chat. I think there were a couple of things that popped up. Big Dre says, sometimes I feel like certain items are cursed. I had a shirt returned to me on eBay because it didn't fit, then sold on Poshmark and got lost in the mail. Yeah. That's no good. You do not want that to happen. And yeah, it does feel like that sometimes. Like you get an item that just, I've had a couple that I've sold more than once, or ran at an auction and it didn't get paid, and then ran at an auction again and it didn't get paid. So yeah, there are some items that are just a problem. Chuck Witch says, I'm sure you come across postcards, travel brochures, photographs, and other non-book paper ephemera, but notice you don't really deal in it. Not enough price margin. I have done postcards in the past. There are so many, and some are valuable, but it's a lot like trading cards. Sorting through hundreds to find dozens that might be valuable is just something I'm choosing not to do. Occasionally, kind of the random items that get stuck into a book, I will look them up. For instance, I've got something listed right now. It's a little, like a 4-page educational booklet about the history of tornadoes in Ohio that was stuck into a climatology textbook. Really unusual piece, no comps, nothing like it. So I threw it up there for like $12.99 just to see if something would happen with that. So I do on occasion do that, but I don't focus on those categories because for me, there's just not enough bang for the buck. Now, there are people who specialize specifically in postcards that are making a killing, but they also have tens of thousands of listings, and that's just it's not in the business that I want to be in. So, but I have bought postcards in the past. I've currently got a box of them I need to figure out what to do with. I will probably at some point just lot them up and try to get rid of them. But researching individual postcards is just a little more tedium than I'm interested in doing. Mel Flipsit says, I have the opposite. I buy on the platform I sell on. I did not before. And to be fair, I rarely bought on eBay before I started selling there, and I still rarely buy on eBay. Every now and then I'll pick something up, but by and large, I'm not a big shopper on any of these platforms. Big Dre says, for the majority of my eBay career, I was a buyer first, seller second. That only changed a couple of years ago when I switched from a casual seller to a part-time seller. Right. And that, like she said, it does change your focus. If you are, even the way you look at items as a buyer now has changed because you're more educated about the value of items, the costs involved in conducting a transaction on the platform. So you just have a lot more knowledge. So you come into a potential purchase transaction probably with a little, your eyes a little more wide open about what all is involved there, what the costs are, and so on. So it would definitely change your experience. I commented, I think I talked about this on the show a long time ago, but big music fan, have been a lifelong music fanatic, and I opened my own record and CD store, which I did for a little over 12 years. And by the end of that time, I had lost the passion for music. Sometimes when you turn your personal passions into a business, you can lose that love for it because it changes your perspective on things. So it's something to be really cautious of. Like if you're a big book fan, maybe opening a bookshop is not necessarily the best idea because it will change how you view books. It becomes less about the personal emotional attachment to the thing and more about the potential profit motive of the thing, and it just changes how you feel about it. It took me a couple of years really to rekindle my love for music after I closed my record and CD store back in 2012. So that's a bit of a cautionary tale. Just be careful. Like they say, be careful what you wish for, because it definitely can change your perspective. So let's go back down here into some of these comments and see. Making ends meet. Judy Stop and Shop said, now we know why the minimum promoted listing fee is 5%, which was recently changed from 1. They will be sharing that percentage with Facebook on those listings? Question mark. Maybe. I don't know. There's been no, as is often the case, there's been no transparency on who's paying whom and how much on that particular thing. It feels like Facebook's primary reason for entering into that partnership is to potentially forestall or reduce fines that they're facing from antitrust lawsuits and regulation. So I don't know that they're necessarily trying to claw a bunch of money out of it from the front end. It's more about the lawsuit on the other end. But there's been no transparency on who is paying or how much on any of that. We talked about SurePost and some of the stuff going on with the change in the partnership or the elimination of the partnership between the Postal Service and UPS. Mel Flipset had commented that her UPS would not accept any package with the SurePost label. I had seen other sellers comment the same thing, that they had taken packages with the dual barcode, which USPS announced they were going to get rid of. They had tried to take it to UPS and UPS said no, and they tried to take it to the post office and the post office also said no. So they got a package that they've bought shipping for that has both barcodes on it that they cannot actually ship. So I don't know what the result was for that, but very interesting. C. Baxter 4656 said, I was selling my paintings on eBay, not as a shop, a few months ago. Auctions were going really well. As soon as I listed, I was getting loads of views, watches, and bids. Since the start of 2025, I've converted to a basic shop. Since then, I'm getting far less views, watchers, and bids. It doesn't make sense. Can someone please give me some advice? I know there have been several posts over the last couple of weeks that eBay is having a technical glitch with watchers and views not registering properly in the statistics. I've got a whole mess of items right now that are showing 0 views that I know have been viewed because I've had people reach out and ask questions. So some of that may be like a technical problem. I can't think of any reason other than a technical issue of some sort why eBay would punish someone who opened a shop who's now paying extra to list more stuff, and then eBay would not show their stuff. So I don't guess that there's probably a direct connection, but there may be some sort of glitch. I do recall over the years sellers saying that when they noticed a precipitous drop in views or transactions that they've reached out to eBay, and that the eBay customer service reps, if they were able to get a hold of one, said something about doing a reset on their store, which seemed to restore things. So if you're in that situation, it may be worth running the gauntlet and trying to make a phone call to eBay. Davinia Robbins 9298 said, bloody heck, if these fees, talking about the eBay buyer fees, were in place now, the item I sold 2 days ago would have cost my buyer an extra £55. So it must have been a pretty expensive item. This would have made my item unviable to sell on eBay's. Will buyers get buyer fee promotions like private sellers used to get, or will private sellers get fee discounts on their items? A really interesting point. This was what people were running into on Mercari, that the sticker shock of the fee, £55 is a significant amount of money added on to an item. that would potentially make a buyer not want to buy. We talked about it last week or 2 weeks ago. Do sellers adjust their prices down to account for the fee to make the item competitive? If you were a private seller versus a business seller, and you had, for instance, the example that was used was media, a $10 CD or a 10-pound CD, and a business seller also had it for 10 pounds. After this change goes into effect on February 4th, I believe is the date, your item is no longer 10 pounds. It's now 11 something because the fees will be added on, where the business seller is still at 10. So your item theoretically is no longer price competitive. What do? Do you eat that fee? And at that point, is it really fee-free selling for private sellers? That was my argument when Mercari made the change as well. Let me know what you think in the chat. It's a really tough conundrum. It was why I did not initially lower my prices on Mercari when they made that change, because I'm like, I'm not, why would I subsidize? You just made it sound like it's supposed to be free for me to sell. But in order for me to sell, I have to subsidize the buyer paying the fee, which means, in essence, I'm still paying the fee. That logic just kind of escaped me. So there you go. You can let me know again in the chat what you think of that. Husty's Emporium, hello from the UK. We're just talking about you over in the UK. Interesting times over there for sure. Let's see here. I made the comment last week that Whatnot is like browsing at the mall, and Brian Henry agreed with that analogy. I used his example of the Pan Am book as something that he added to an existing listing to enhance the quality of his listing over on eBay. He said, I'd never have gone for a book like that, but by watching the show, I saw an opportunity as a way to make my eBay lot different from the competition and perhaps better, and provide some viewer support for the show. So, and it was $1 or $2 for the book plus shipping and tax. So yeah, there are opportunities. We were talking about our resellers using Whatnot for sourcing. And I think in some cases they are, because there are a lot of instances where, if I've got a bunch, like yesterday, my fiction book show and sale, everything was $1 start. That's what you're going to pay at an estate sale, or maybe even less than you might pay at an estate sale for some of those books. Now, obviously, I already know the retail value of those books is only $4 or $5. So it may not be a great opportunity to source, but there are definitely chances to source there, and maybe to do like Brian did in that case, kind of out of the box thinking, and say, hey, I've got this whatever lot of X goods that this particular book or other item over on Whatnot that's only $1 or $2 might enhance. Is that worth doing to make my particular listing stand out? And again, as always, making your listing stand out, whether it's through quality photos, through a video, like we talked about earlier, good quality listing, good title, good description, item specifics, anything you can do to make your listing stand out is obviously of benefit to you. Shirley asked a question last week. Have a sealed 4 DVD set, but something is moving around when shaken. What could possibly be loosened in the pack? This is not super uncommon, that a DVD or a CD will somehow get popped off the little plastic spindle in the case, and then you'll hear it rattling around in there. It usually, the case is so small, the space for it to move is so small that it will not damage the disc, but it is definitely something that you can hear if you shake that package. And that's the answer I gave. It's likely one of the DVDs has become detached from the spindle. It's fairly common. I just disclose it in the description. This is new and sealed, so I can't look in there to see that this is exactly what it is. But my experience, having sold media for, gosh, what has it been now? Too many years, 25 years or more, would lead me to believe that that's what it is. Unlikely to be a problem, but I do disclose it in the description. That way it's not a surprise, because the worst thing you want is for the buyer to get the thing and they take it out of their mailbox and they hear the DVD rattling around in there. Of course, it is possible that with the gentle, loving care that the United States Postal Service moves items across the country, that it became detached in shipment, and then there's really nothing you can do about it anyway. But if you know about it, you're always better off to disclose it. Let's see. There were a lot of comments on reaching the 2,000 subscriber mark. Thank you very much. Let's have some applause again for that. When I started this venture, was it 2019? So, gosh, a long time ago now. The trek to that first 100 subscribers was incredibly difficult, and the trek to the first 1,000 was even worse. They say your first 1,000 is the hardest, and it took 4 years for me to get to 1,000 subscribers, and it took less than a year to get the second 1,000. By the standards of YouTube, by what you see with these, huge channels, 2,000 subscribers is not a big deal. But in the scheme of the reality of YouTube, where I think it's less than 9% of channels ever actually get monetized, which means 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time in a year. 2,000 is I feel pretty good actually about that, and I want to thank all of you for coming along for the journey, putting up with my nonsense sometimes, and hopefully you all get something out of it. Apparently you do, because most of you keep coming back, so I really appreciate it. Let's hop back up in here into the chat real quick. Media Picker just hit 200. I saw that. Congratulations. Was at 201, but lost one the other day. And it's funny. I go through that myself. I got to 2000, and then it went to 2003, and then it dropped to 2002, 2001. I was like, man, I'm going to drop below. And it goes up and down, but the progression has been steadily up, as has yours. So congratulations on 200, and I hope it continues to grow for you. Dendegor Debo says, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that you guys come out. Some of you are here literally every Wednesday. You catch every Monday episode. You always have interesting and valuable things to add in the chat and in the comments. I see you answering each other's questions in the chat and the comments when I can't get to something right away. And I absolutely appreciate the fact that this has developed into a little bit of a community. And I kind of said the same thing about Whatnot. While initially it looks like it's, lower value sales and maybe not necessarily super profitable, there is definitely a community vibe there, and there's a community building where you see people regularly attending, commenting, asking about other things like the podcast or the YouTube channel. And so everything kind of gets an opportunity to grow together, which is really, really cool. I appreciate how that has gone. And I really, to be fair, I really enjoy doing the Whatnot shows. They're not necessarily all that fun if you have 20 items and you don't sell any. But the experience, again, kind of like this, an opportunity to have a quote unquote face-to-face conversation with people in the book community, in the science fiction community, and talk about your favorite authors or your favorite books or whatever, is really, really, it's something that you don't get when you just list a book on eBay for $20 and put it on the shelf and wait for somebody to buy it. Having an opportunity to have a conversation in real time about an item, even if it's a low value item, for me, it's been an exhilarating experience. I cannot tell you how much I've enjoyed how that has gone, and just the difference that is versus eBay or Mercari. Operating on eBay says, thank you for creating the atmosphere for community. I do try. It is, I see some channels that have a very different approach. Again, to go back to the clickbait titles and, everything is garbage and everything stinks and whatever. It's just not real, for starters. So I just can't do that. But I'm a big believer that a rising tide lifts all ships. And if we can all help each other out, you, as I've said previously, are not my competition. You are my community, and we should all be willing to help each other out and try to grow this community. There's plenty of opportunity for everybody. Miss Lachey says, I'm hearing a lot more people talk about cross-listing their items to Whatnot. I'll be interesting to see how that goes. I've not done anything to the Whatnot like buy it now marketplace. Everything I've done has been towards live shows. I talked a little bit on Monday's show, Whatnot, when they announced their recent round of funding, 250 odd million dollars. It was all kind of focused on the live selling aspect. So even for them, it kind of feels like the marketplace is a bit of an afterthought. I think I mentioned I've not even looked at the marketplace. When I go on to Whatnot, whether it's on the app or on my PC, I don't even look at the marketplace. I simply look at the live shows that are available and decide if I want to watch one or participate in one or look for something in one. The marketplace just never even comes to mind for me. So it's going to be really interesting to see if they refocus a little bit on that to try to get some extra growth there, or if enough sellers come over and start filling that thing up with items that it becomes a place where buyers want to go. Because right now, like I said, the analogy I used of the shopping mall, people just go and they walk through the different shows and shops without really any particular goal in mind, as opposed to going to eBay. I want to find item X, or going to Poshmark. I want to find this particular shirt or blouse or dress or whatever it is. It's a very different shopping experience, and trying to do both of those things is going to be really fascinating to watch, in my opinion. But yeah, let me know if you are listing on the Whatnot marketplace. I had one person that reached out and commented on one of the YouTube videos that they've listed 10 or 12 things and sold one or two, which is a fairly decent hit rate, if I'm being honest. If you're doing 20% of your listings are actually getting activity and selling, I would feel pretty good about that. Christy, hello, said, I've had no luck with listing items unless I'm doing a live show. Then I will sometimes sell something from my buy it now. So again, to go back to the point that someone made earlier in the YouTube comments, taking maybe a buy it now item of higher value when I'm doing a show with all $1 starts and just sticking it in. Hey, here's this random piece. I'm offering it for market value, $35, whatever the thing is. Is there opportunity there maybe to capture a sale you would not have without risking selling that $35 item for $1? That may be something to look at. And again, here's a person who has things listed in the kind of fixed price marketplace that is really only seeing activity coming from a live, which again leads me to believe that the live thing, and it's why they're so dominant in it. It is what people go there for. They go to see a show or shows, not necessarily even to look for a particular item. I've done, I don't know now, 20, 30 shows, and only once or twice have I had a person ask if I had a very specific title. People are just there to kind of browse and see what's what, see if they can get a deal. You go to a sneaker show, you don't necessarily know that they're going to have the particular item that you might be in the market for, but they cycle through 30, 40, 50 pairs of shoes, and all of a sudden you see one, you're like, hey, I kind of like those, and you make that impulse buy. That to me is their market. It's their marketing plan. And I'm not sure how the marketplace, fixed price marketplace, fits in with that. It's fascinating to watch, to be honest. Mel Flips says, I always look for the buy it now during Whatnot because I get bored waiting. And different shows obviously handle those things in different ways. I've seen a couple of shows, the presenters are like manic. It's like, whew, I'm almost 60 years old. I don't have the energy for that. Really high energy, which obviously there are buyers that are interested in that kind of, performance aspect to the show. Some people, like I'm currently, most of my shows, I bring a particularly curated batch of 20 items to the show. And I spend a little bit of time on each item. We talk about the book. I'll read the blurb on the book. I'll show the book, So any particular listing might take 4 or 5 minutes to cycle through, where others are just, here, I got this book. Does anybody want it? Nope. And on to the next. I'm going to try that actually next Tuesday. If you're interested, next Tuesday at 7 p.m., my Whatnot show, I've currently got 70 books loaded into a vintage clearance sale. And I'm going to be doing just that. I'm going to show the book. I'm not going to do my graphics and my sound effects and all the extra stuff I do on my show. I'm just going to show the book, ask the chat, do you want me to run it? If the answer is no, it's going on the donate pile and we'll move on to the next. And I'm going to try to get through 70 odd or more books in an hour or so. So that will be a much more fast paced show. So there are multiple approaches in how you conduct a show. My approach has been a little, you've seen my shows, a little more casual pace, not quite as manic as some, not so over the top, but still trying to bring value, if that makes sense. Lag, hi, hello, thanks for coming out. JRKR says, it is annoying to go to a Whatnot show and they just talk and don't really show anything very quickly, so slow. I've got several people that have been to my shows that I go to their shows and they're literally just sitting in front of a stack of books, chatting with no clear direction. And a lot of times you'll see those shows only have one or two people in them at a time. So I feel like there's probably some middle ground somewhere between that and the manic. I show something for 2 seconds and then I'm on to the next thing because it didn't sell. So it's really there's somewhere in the middle there, which is the ground I'm trying to find, where I'm trying to build a community. I'm trying to do a show, not just sell a bunch of stuff, but I'm not trying to do it at such a pace that 20 books takes 2.5 hours. Run it. Yes, absolutely. I want to run everything. Last night was really interesting. Now, I normally I'm doing hardcovers at $2 starts. Yesterday, I did everything at a $1 start, and I sold 17 out of the 20. Only a couple I had to run more than once. So interesting, the difference between on an old book, a $1 start and a $2 start. Last week, I did $2 starts, obviously different batch of books, but I sold 8 out of 20. This week at $1 starts, I sold twice as many and essentially made a little bit more money because a couple of them did bid up a little bit. So we'll see. It is interesting. Lord Jake Ryan says, would like to see you, the Scatman voice, doing your Whatnot. Somebody told me to do Jeff Goldblum the other day. I was reading the blurb off of the back of a really wacky science fiction or fantasy book, and they're like, you should do that in a Jeff Goldblum voice. I'm like, I'll have to work on that. There's manic and then there's dead. Yes, definitely two extremes over there. And again, I think it depends to some extent on the market and on the seller. I know a couple of the really slower paced shows that I've seen seem to be older sellers, probably older even than I am, at approaching 60. So those kind of folks, that kind of manic, frenetic pace, it's just not in us. It's not how we do things necessarily. But again, there's got to be a middle ground where you've got to be doing something. I always have music going in the background. There's got to be something to keep some people engaged. I don't think anybody stays at a show for the entire time. I see all the time just in the chat, people pop in, they pop out, they come and go. They'll buy something, they'll leave, they'll come back, they'll buy something else. So I don't think anybody's trying to sit there for an hour or 2 hours and watch a show, but especially not if there's nothing going on. Mel Flips, it says Tuesday at the same time. Yes, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern. I changed that show from Wednesday to Tuesday. So for the time being, there'll be 2 shows on Whatnot. Wednesday will be kind of mixed stuff. Next week is just a mixed vintage clearance. The Tuesday after that, 7 o'clock Eastern, is, I believe, a horror and suspense book show. So the Tuesdays will vary what the topic of the shows are. Fridays are always science fiction and fantasy. Recommerce Dave says, do you believe you would get more viewers and longer retention in Whatnot if you expanded the offering beyond books, say a mix of books, CDs, and DVDs? Maybe. My concern, I'm trying again to, with the exception of the clearance sale next week, which is being curated as clearance, so kind of everything is open, but I'm trying to do kind of category specific shows. So a science fiction and fantasy show, a religious book show, a history book show. And I guess if I had DVDs, movies. I don't have a lot in my inventory currently because I haven't bought any in ages. But if I had some that fit within that category, could I bring those over? Probably so. If I'm doing a show about music or composers, could I bring some classical CDs into the mix? Yeah, you could probably do that. But I'm trying to keep my shows more or less focused on a particular type of category, a genre, if you will, and mixing in other things might be a little difficult, but that's not a bad idea to consider. Again, if I'm doing a science fiction show and I've got old copies of Star Wars or whatever sitting around, to bring those in and try to get rid of those as well. Media Picker says I should do my first whatnot as the voice of Beavis. There you go. Do you do a good Beavis? People won't stick around if nothing much is happening. Right. And again, there's a fine line between, and again, it's knowing your audience between being manic. If I'm a shoe seller aiming for sub 30-year-old buyers, that manic, high energy, fast paced environment is going to work for those buyers. And it makes sense. If I'm trying to target more kind of serious minded people, those people aren't watching that show, but maybe they'll come over and like the more chill pace of a show like mine. But it can't be nothing. It just can't be a static image of a stack of books and some music that's playing on a speaker that's 30 feet away that sounds like it's being played through 10 layers of clothing. Anne says, Jeff Goldblum is what my husband calls you when he hears me listening to you. Well, I guess I'm not that far off then. Kevin Wallace, hello. Very nice chat. I appreciate that. Again, very good community. I love the interaction that we get here. Media Picker says, for whatnot, it's basically being an entertaining salesperson. Yes, having some kind of engagement is obviously super important. I see there's a lot of sellers that don't put themselves on camera, which is fine, but they're still engaging with their audience. They're responding to the chat. They're having conversation. They're talking about, the book or the item, whatever it may be. So even if they're not having this kind of eye contact deal, there's at least something going on there, which makes the show a little more engaging. Mel flips it, says, fundamentals Derek did, and for a few months he added shop my garage, but only on Sunday, now on whatnot. So, and I've seen a lot of that too. Sellers that will do an unboxing and sale where they'll have come from an estate sale or bought out a storage unit or whatever the case may be, and they've got a bunch of stuff and they will just unpack it on the show, not knowing probably what's in there necessarily, and say, hey, here's an item. Here's an item. If anybody wants it, you can create a quick listing on the fly. You need to have a scale handy and whatever, but you could do that sort of thing. And that, again, that might be something I consider in the future. Next time I do a big bulk buy, I might do that. The risk, of course, is that you pull out a book that you could sell on eBay for $100 and you get one person that says, yeah, run that. And you haven't had a chance to comp it and you run it for $1. So yeah, you take your chances if you do it that way. He does. And mainly though, I think you're talking about how he does his garage shows. We are at about an hour, it looks like. So if anybody has anything else they would like to cover before we get out of here today, as always, thank you so much for coming by and participating, spending a little bit of your midweek with me. It's always enlightening. I always get good ideas from you about things you could add. And hopefully all of you do as well. Pick up things from each other that you can add to your business, or at least consider adding to your business to continue to grow and develop as we move through 2025. While you're thinking about if you have anything else to say, I'm going to take another drink of this hot chocolate. Which is in fact still hot because I have a little coffee warmer here. Blocked it. Blocked what? Oh, snacks? Yeah. Yeah, I know he does. Derek does a big snack show. Cameron, have a good day. Thanks for coming out. Again, thank you to everyone that came out today, that stopped by the Monday show and had some comments there. A lot of really interesting conversation around the things going on. Again, Whatnot Show Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern will be science fiction and fantasy. And then next Tuesday, there will be at least 70 books in a vintage and antique book clearance. Ryan Dreyer says, don't know if it's age so much as the type of pacing that our generation is used to versus what younger folks are used to in the media they consume. That's a very good point. We are, again, to go, yeah, give away my age. When I bought a record, you listened to the entire record. You listened to one side and then you flipped it over and you listened to the other. It was a investment of time to listen to an album. You read a book, you watched a full movie. Today's generation, they listen to singles, they listen to Spotify or Pandora on random. They are watching TikTok and YouTube Shorts. They're not interested in long form video, anything over a couple of minutes, and their attention span has drifted off. And I don't know which is the cause and which is the effect, but that is absolutely true. Media consumption is very, very different. It was one of the reasons I talked about closing my record store back in 2012. It was summer day, sitting there, had the door open. You got all these CDs and records, and a kid walks by listening to music on his phone, just out of the phone speaker. And that was the kind of the light bulb moment for me that consumption of media was going to go through a massive transformation. Sitting in a little town of 70-odd thousand people, it was obvious to me that physical media, at least in the short run, was in for a very rough way to go. Now, it is since making somewhat of a comeback. We've seen vinyl have a big resurgence. CDs now appear to also be on the uptake. But media consumption in general, be it music, movies, books, video, is definitely different than it was 20, 30 years ago. Media Picker says, thank you. Husty's Emporium have subbed. We'll check in next time. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Shows drop for members usually on Sunday and live for everyone Monday morning. That is a reselling news recap and a what sold recap. And then Wednesdays, we usually do this live chat. Again, thank you so much. Until next time, my friends, it's time to sell. Thanks, guys.